now to 6:14 in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, as mentioned earlier, just before the break actually, the Chaguaramas Development Authority has been under fire for the proposed development for Chaguaramas, in certain areas. Stakeholders and residents in the area have accused the CA of a lack of proper consultation and improper planning, which will negatively affect the area. The CDA believes there has been a lot of misinformation circulating about its plans, and we're joined by the CEO, Joycelin Hargreaves, as well as Mr. Jalaludin Khan, who is the Urban Development Coordinator for the CDA. A very good morning to you, gentlemen, and Ms. Hargreaves. Good to have you on the program. First and foremost, Ms. Hargreaves, what is your perspective in relation to the development? What is the vision of the CDA as far as the development, and is it fair to say that that vision has been properly and comprehensively shared with the key stakeholders?
Good morning, viewers. Firstly, I would like to share the vision for the development of the peninsula. The vision deals with the management and the development of the peninsula, one that at the end, at the objective, that one, the land must not be left idle. The land must not be used for speculative purposes. The land in its use must create socio-economic activity and benefit to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Those are the guiding philosophies in coming to the development and management of the peninsula. We also need to be mindful that 52% of the land, which is 14,574 acres, must remain protected, and just 11% is to be for development. Out of that 11%, 9% is already in use. So it is very important that there must be proper management, responsible management and development on the land.
Does that responsibility include, does it not include a proper consultation with individuals who are affected, or even individuals who are not from the area, who feel that there's a certain value to Chaguaramas given its historical context, the march to Chaguaramas and getting it back from the Americans and so on, that it's not just about any old piece of state land, that there's significant historical context to it? And in that context, has there been proper consultation with all of the key stakeholders?
There was proper consultation, and there will continue to be proper consultation, and Jal will speak to that a little later. What we need to recognize is that CDA understands the history of Chaguaramas. We understand the social struggles and the many layers of successive intervention over the years. We are dealing with legacy issues that remain unaddressed, and part of development requires that we look at these factors.
But aren't you trampling over that legacy when you convert certain areas that are seen to be very significant historically into amusement parks, and you get rid of the aviation museum, and you turn the entire area into a cut price Disney World, when people see significant areas that are being basically trampled upon that have historical context?
We have to look at what is in the best interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The guiding philosophy we must never lose focus of: 52% protected, 11% for built development. We have to look at the legacy issues, similar like the aviation museum. Occupying 2 acres of land on a waterfront property, is that the best use for a museum, given the location in the coastal waters? We have to recognize that for 24 years, they occupied that space without paying rent. That is to the burden of taxpayers. We have to recognize that an offer was made for lease and that they refused to accept that offer. So there we have, refused to accept the offer, refused to improve on the premises, the best use of space, and no rent at all for 24 years. That is a burden to the taxpayers, and it has to be resolved. We continue to dialogue and engage in discussions. We have offered alternative location, twice the amount of space, next to the University of Trinidad and Tobago in the Grandwood area. So we are interested in our tenants. We are interested in development and discussion, but it requires that a give and take on both sides and understanding national imperatives. What is the best use? What is in the interests of Trinidad and Tobago?
Mr. Khan, let me bring you in here as far as this whole issue of land use and the whole question of a land use policy, but let's narrow it to the area that we're talking about here specifically. What is your perspective on this as far as the development that is proposed, that is already being implemented by the CDA, and how do you respond to those who criticize this level of development that is taking place?
Good morning, Fazeer. In terms of Chaguaramas and its special context and in terms of land use planning, from a macro level, we have the National Spatial Development Strategy, which the country follows, and you drill down to the area where Chaguaramas is located within the Diego Martin Regional Corporation municipality. Chaguaramas itself does have an existing master plan under the 1974 statutory plan. What CDA is enhancing and developing is building on this 1974 plan to advance and to also democratize the process of planning and opportunities in Chaguaramas. The current 2015 master plan that was designed recognizes three important things. One, to recognize Chaguaramas as a symbol of pride and to promote common use and ownership for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Second, in terms of the development goal, to act as a catalyst for change and embrace environmental stewardship. And lastly, to promote economic diversification. The new plan that we are rolling out, and I say rolling out because the process still continues, has gone through first on the back end a series of strategic consultation to produce any technical document. And the praise that we add, because recently we just had a public consultation, is rolling out consultation to the various stakeholder interest groups.
The argument is, Mr. Khan, if I could interject, that consultation was far from public, that there were only specific people invited and people who actually kept out of that consultation.
The process that we have engaged is going forward to develop more consultative process, and on the Chaguaramas, for example, Chaguaramas website, CDA's website, one could access the master plan and access responses to the master plan. After we move on the master plan, it moves forward to advance the 1974 plan to a new statutory plan, which will require more detailed and face-to-face public and community consultations to be handed over to the Ministry of Planning.
Are these consultations in the real sense, or are you merely having these things as a shop window because you've already made up your minds about what you're going to do?
I would like to say that this plan, this study commenced in January 2018, and there was significant consultation. The consultants comprised the best and the brightest and understanding of the history and significance and importance of Chaguaramas. The consultation involved state entities as well as private entities. We looked at two key areas. We looked at environment and we looked at transportation. And it also therefore engaged tenants who were represented at that consultation. And we have the evidence of all of that. They were given the opportunity to make and to contribute to the consultation. We have
but were their contributions taken on board?
Oh, definitely. Added to that, the consultation that we had, the last one, we opened up the floor. We invited persons, and whoever was interested were allowed to enter. We denied no one the opportunity.
You're saying that no one was kept out of it?
No one was denied the opportunity. We recognized that there were spaces limited, and yet we opened up the floor for whoever wanted to attend was allowed to attend. And added to that, we gave the opportunity. You can respond and make comments online. You can write your questions. We will take all of that into consideration. And the consultation continue. The floor is open in different spheres, online, by writing, whatever is comfortable to you. The floor is open and we would respond. We have already commenced responding to many questions and comments raised because the plan is online. And these responses are online for viewing. And
Mr. Khan, just to continue on your points, as you were highlighting some points, one of the areas that even some people who are in favor of the development, they're talking about the access and the whole question of a causeway or whatever, which it's become a political issue. But from the simple point of all of this development without proper access into and out of the area, aren't you putting the cart before the horse?
Not necessarily. In terms of what the CDA master plan looks at, is to look at the internal transportation solutions in a sustainable transportation design strategy. Also, too, the interface with the external transport network is something that we have interfaced with the Ministry of Transport, etc. And there has been pronouncement of strategies, not only about a causeway, but in short to medium term, developing access into the peninsula, for example. What we have to look and appreciate is that Chaguaramas is for all. And what we appreciate that CDA is the land management agency that is trying to make this happen. And we need the cooperation and partnership and also the education of our stakeholders.
Is it for all or only for a few private investors who are friends of the government?
It is for all. And we have demonstrated that. Look at the boardwalk. Look at the results of that boardwalk. That is historical. It is phenomenal. And that is only the beginning. It is about engaging the widest possible participation. We have entrepreneurs. We had a career fair. We had 600 persons registering in one day. We have had consultation and discussions with the youth. We have educational tours with the fence line communities and in the other areas, bringing them into Chaguaramas to know and understand what Chaguaramas is about, what the history is about, what the social struggles are about, all the confronted interests. We are educating the public through different spheres.
Has that included the Guava Road farmers?
Oh, definitely, definitely. They were treated no different to any other key stakeholder.
Because they have a very different reaction to all of this. They are saying basically that what the CDA is doing is very surreptitiously, despite all of the lovely PR and the websites and all of that, they are basically having their crops bulldozed, having their rights being trampled upon, the rights of adverse possession, which stands in the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, and that basically the CDA is using its muscle and its influence to basically trample upon their rights.
There's a governing authority called the courts, and the court has made a determination on that matter. That matter was taken to court by the group which called themselves the Guava Farmers, and a determination was made, and CDA was allowed to proceed with its development. I want to say to you as well that we have had significant discussions with the group. We have also gone further, and we have engaged in discussions with the Ministry of Food Production, who has been allocated 200 acres of land, representing 37% of the overall amount of land in Chaguaramas. 200, the largest amount. And we have invited them to register with the Ministry of Food Production to follow through on farming if they are interested, if it is affecting their livelihood. We have also assisted in relocation of 3 of such persons. We have also continued dialogue and offered them opportunities to apply to the CDA, to do business with the CDA as entrepreneurs. That is the degree of discussions that we have had with them. And they have rejected all such options. 1 person responded to the Ministry of Food Production and registered. So we have gone through all lengths to engage in discussions with them. And we will continue to do so. I would like to add as well that if there's any legal document that signals or demonstrate that there is a right to such space, we are willing to honor it. That is the extent on which we are standing by, and we would honor it. So we invite them to bring whatever legal documents which will be honored. But as far as the legal record showed, the land is vested in the Chaguaramas Development Authority.
And that has been determined by the courts?
It has been determined, and I want to share with you the development for that area. It will engage the widest participation. You're talking about open amphitheater. You're talking about interpretive center. We will be restoring the famous what we call the wetland, which is in fact swamp forest. The ecosystem was adversely affected.
When you say restoring, what do you mean? Because some will say that wetland should just be left alone.
The wetland has been destroyed when the Americans occupied that area. By infilling the area, it adversely affected the ecosystem, cutting off the salt supply, water supply to the system. So has been adversely affected. We will be restoring that area. That is part of the development because we are about management. We want to engage the public. Widest use for that area, the gateway to Chaguaramas. So we will have the interpretive center and open amphitheater. That will bring thousands of people into Chaguaramas. That is what development and management is about.
And you said it quite correctly, thousands of people, but that will be miles and miles of traffic and hours of getting in and out. Are you ignoring one of the very key elements of this entire development plan, of the traffic headaches that exist now and are going to be many times worse in months to come?
Not at all, and I will tell you why. The development plan, part of it, shows how the development is to be rolled out. It's a phase basis. and we're looking at 0 to 5 years, what are the assumptions that will govern development? Would there be alternative transport coming in? We do not anticipate in the first 5 years. And as such, what steps are we going to take to address that issue? So development is in conjunction with the type of access and transportation system that will be employed. So we have immediate, we have also medium-term strategies. We will be using the waterways. We will be opening up marinas that will allow access to vessels or the landlocked areas into the mainland. We would be having the water taxi, private operators. We would be working with, and we have started to work with the Ministry of Works, the Commissioner of Police. So we will be having traffic wardens, surveillance systems to ensure that laws are abided to, because this whole challenge with the traffic has to do with unregulated development coming into the Carenage area. That has to be managed.
Does it? Because it's just as simple as a narrow strip of road, basically, and there really, because of the geography of the area, there really isn't any space unless you go offshore to do any development.
That is why the development has been unregulated, impacting on that. So it is something that we work with the Ministry of Works and the public in how we manage ourselves while driving on that road, the indiscriminate parking. So we have a part to play as the Chaguaramas Development Authority, but it requires a concerted effort from the Ministry of Works, from the Commissioner of Police, and from the public, and we are working together to achieve that, educating the public and ensuring that we work together to manage the traffic issues coming into Chaguaramas.
We just have a few minutes left, and Mr. Khan, I just want to get your summation of your perspective. That is this really the optimum use of the area that is under consideration? Because there will always be competing interests, and can you put the politics aside and say without fear of contradiction that this is the optimum use commercially, and finding the balance between commercial and preservation? Is this the optimum use for the area?
Fazeer, I'm speaking as a technical officer of the CDA and speaking in terms of as a planning specialist. There's three things that in terms of us as a country and as Chaguaramas needs to keep in mind. And this is what the planning process we have integrated. First of all, we look at the environmental planning component. Chaguaramas is proposed and is in sense a de facto national park. And this is what we're moving forward in terms of a national park policy to protect the natural resource. Overlying that is the social value of Chaguaramas, and our planning designs in terms of the phases look at the social value of this element. But to sustain Chaguaramas, as in terms of the CDA Act, it allows the authority to act as a leasee, to act as a landlord to lease, to have a balance between economic and social values of the area in terms of providing services. So we have a look at an economic option where we have zoned areas for economic activities in phase basis and encourage all participants into our society to invest and to participate in that development process.
And Ms. Hargreaves, the accusation is that while you're giving all of this information about reaching out to fence line communities, reaching out to stakeholders, offering options concerning the museum, offering options to the Guave Road farmers and others, the perception is that this is really a done deal. You see all the advertisements about the play parks and the amusement parks and so on, that really you and Mr. Khan are here essentially to PR the entire experience, to basically give the CDA side of the story for a matter that you have already concretized your plans, and all of the consultation is not really consultation. How do you respond?
How do you know that what we are doing is successful? How do we measure success? And we are saying to you, just take a walk on the boardwalk and think what it was like years ago and what we have achieved. We are seeing entrepreneurs. We are seeing them selling ice cream in structures which never existed before. We're seeing grill bistro. We're seeing the coffee shop.
And there's some who take great exception to the commercialization of the entire area.
And when you speak to them, they will tell you how they ended up being there. There was an ad on the papers. As far back as 2012, we started our investment promotion, inviting the public to invest. We outlined all the different opportunities. This is how they were engaged. They responded. We went to all the missions, the embassies, the ministries, to the website. We partnered with InvestTT. Our process was open, it was transparent, and it was fair, and it engaged the widest possible participation. Some responded and some did not. We went back to the archives. We looked at applications from 2008 coming forward. We asked the public, if you have applied prior to 2008, reapply. We looked at all the applications. Admittedly, it was a lot. Admittedly, we would not be able to engage everyone at the same time. But I want to say to you that the process was a fair, transparent, and open process. Speak to any one of our entrepreneurs, and they can testify as how they became business partners to the CDA.
Time has run out on this segment. Thanks very much for coming in, Ms. Hargreaves and Mr. Khan, to give us a perspective on this matter, and we'll get the opposing view when we come back after the break as we continue to discuss the area of the development of the Chaguaramas. It's a very emotive area politically and otherwise, and as we've heard from the CDA, their perspective is that they've engaged in all of the consultation, they've offered options, and indeed we'll have to wait and see what the other reactions will be to these particular points raised by Ms. Hargreaves and Mr. Khan. We continue in this first hour of Morning Edition right after the break.